In today's video, we are discussing the Euro USD as we head into today's Fed rate decision and press conference. So I'm going to run through what I think we could see from this market here over the next few days. But keep in mind, though, that we do have that volatility coming up here today with FOMC. So this is one of those cases where, in my opinion, you are better off waiting for the volatility to settle after today's session and then going from there. This is not something where I would try to trade these markets going into FOMC. So with that out of the way, let's take a look here at the Euro USD weekly time frame. So I'm not going to run through the targets that we've had here over the past couple of months. If you guys have been watching these videos, you know that this down here was my target following the break of this range. And once we got the breakdown from this trend line here, we had the market coming down here to test 104.50, and 103.50 was actually my end of year target, which you can see was tested right here. I was calling for this back here in this area up around 1.078. Now, the Euro USD has gone sideways here, kind of as expected, because this is a significant support area here for the Euro USD, going all the way back here to this low in 2017. So this down here between 103.50, 104.50, this is a significant support area. So no surprise to see the Euro USD going sideways here ever since that November 22nd retest. So where are we likely to see this market go here over the next few days? And one thing to keep in mind here is that it's a range until proven otherwise. Okay, so the last thing you want to do is try to short a market like this, thinking that we're going down here toward this low while the market is still above 104.50, because you would be shorting right into support. And again, we do have FOMC coming up. So as I said at the beginning of this video, I don't think that now is the time to trade. Instead, wait for the dust to settle following today's FOMC. So, two ways this market could go. And I know people hate hearing this, but it's the truth. The market can either hold within this range, so bounce from support down here and target the highs up here around 106, or we get the breakdown below here to target 103.50. Now, one reason why we could see 103.50 here over the coming days is, I mentioned this in yesterday's weekly forecast, but you can see this wick down here, right? It's not necessarily the longest wick. In other words, the market didn't close, up here giving us this really long lower wick. However, it is still a decently long wick here on the daily time frame. And a lot of times when you get wicks like this, the market does tend to fill them. In other words, they act as a magnet because this creates an imbalance in the market. There's so much buying pressure down here in this area that you have orders that are left on the table in this region, and markets seek liquidity. Okay, so this could serve as a magnet here for the Euro USD over the coming days. However, like I said yesterday, it is going to take a sustained break below 104.50. Okay, this level here, a sustained break below this to open up that 103.50 area. And again, you don't want to be shorting this market into 104.50 support, because shorting into support is never a good idea, especially something as significant as 104.50. Now, one thing that I did notice here over the past couple of days is if we see the Euro USD start to pressure this area down here at 104.50 again, this could start to look a little bit weak here for the market, because you can see the back here, once the market entered this range, you can see that we had this low down here, we had this high, we had a higher low, the market came up here, took out this high, which, by the way, this wick right here is exactly what I was talking about when the market was back here as a potential short, where we got the sweep of these highs and a return to the range. But the bottom line here is that we had a higher high back here. Okay, so higher low, higher high, the market's still within this range. And now all of a sudden we are seeing the market return to the support level after putting in a potential lower high. So if the market really starts to weigh on this area here over the next couple of days, it does start to look relatively weak, because it shows that the Euro USD is unable to get off of this 104.50 support for a run back there at the highs. Okay, it doesn't mean that it will, move lower, but it does start to look a little bit more weak here if we see the Euro USD starting to pressure this 104.50 area here over the next couple of days. And again, you can see where we have, this wick back here that could become a target if we do see the break below 104.50. But again, if we see the market, bounce from 104.50 support, because it's a range until proven otherwise, if we do see this, then of course the targets become highs like this up here and potentially that 106 area. All right, so not something I would trade right now going into FOMC. There's way too much volatility coming up here, way too much uncertainty for these markets. And the same can be said for the DXY, the US dollar index. So this is something, guys, that we've talked about here for months. It's been a very clean chart. It's played out incredibly well. And the big takeaway from this, and this is what I've talked about, for months now, is this reclaim back here at 102.60. This is really what kicked off this rally. And you can see where too the market is finding support right there at that trend line from 2023, okay? So you can see perfect bounce off this level. This is what I talked about in recent videos. And since that time, the market has, been trending higher here over the last few weeks. But you've got to keep in mind, though, we've got this area around 108 all the way down to about 107 that is serving as resistance. Now, one thing I talked about yesterday and still holds true is if you look at the daily chart, okay, this right here is the current range for the DXY over the last few days. And no surprise to see the market going sideways into today's FOMC. So if we see the DXY climb above 107.10, okay, closing the day up here in this area this week, then we're looking at a move back here toward this upper wick and potentially a retest of 108. That would give us that move on the EUR USD down toward 1.035. Now, alternatively, if the DXY, if the US dollar sells off following today's FOMC, okay, down here in this area and breaks levels like this here, okay, then we are probably looking at a return to wicks like this one back here, in which case we see the EUR USD head higher up there toward 1.06. All right, so, two scenarios here. Again, I know people hate hearing that the market could go either way, but it's the truth. We have to account for both possibilities, especially ahead of events like FOMC. All right, so right now, guys, if I had to take a guess here, I'm not a fundamental trader, but I do know that the data right now does not support aggressive rate cuts going into 2025. So I think what we're going to see from the Fed is a 25 basis point rate cut, which the market expects. The question is how much of that is priced in, okay? And personally, I think that a lot of that is priced in because markets are forward looking. So I think we get the 25 basis point cut today, but then it's going to be a matter of what does Powell say? What is the signaling today in today's press conference as far as rate cuts in the future in 2025? And personally, I think that the Fed is going to pause rate cuts. I think that that's going to be the signaling to the market. And the tricky part is that Powell has to deliver that message without spooking markets, okay? So I think that if Jerome Powell comes out and says, hey, look, we cut rates today, but we're going to take a pause and see what the data says, then that could be bullish for the DXY, okay? And that's the scenario here that I'm talking about with the EUR USD heading down here toward this wick around 1.035. But we'll have to wait and see. It all depends on what Powell says, the messaging with today's press conference. That is going to be the key driver. But again, if you are a technical trader like myself, really none of that matters. All it comes down to is where is the EUR USD closing with regard to 1.045. If it breaks this on the daily, then we're looking at 1.035. If it holds above, then the market is still range bound. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell for notifications. Don't forget to join us in VIP. Claim your 90% off lifetime access. See the link in the description of this video. Or if you're on the website, click on that join VIP link. Trade well out there. Be careful with today's FOMC, and I will talk to you again tomorrow.